Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of At the Table. So today we're going to be talking biscuits. But what is a biscuit? It's very simple. It's just a mixture of flour, fat, and leavening agents. And you mix them all together, pop them in the oven, and you have this nice, flaky, delicious little treat. I've been asked many times, well, how do you make a biscuit? I think people are intimidated, but it's not hard, I promise. I remember growing up watching my grandmother and great-grandmother make biscuits. Of course, they just threw in ingredients and mixed it together and it came out perfect every time. But I was determined to find a mixture that was easy, and that's what we're going to talk about today. But I do want to go over some things that help make that nice flaky biscuit with all those soft, buttery layers. So what you want to do is incorporate your fat, layers of fat, into your layers of dough whenever you're making your biscuits. So how you do that is after you've mixed everything, you've got your ingredients together, you put it out onto your surface to start to roll it out and cut your biscuits. You want to do a folding method, and it's just like folding a letter. Fold it over, kind of press it down, turn, flatten it out, fold it again. So it creates those nice layers in the biscuit. And then whenever you put it into the oven, because butter is part fat and water, the water releases steam as it heats up and melts in the oven, again resulting in those nice flaky, pillowy layers. Now, other things that help with making a flaky biscuit is not handling that dough too much. You don't want to over mix it. We don't want to do that. So just incorporate it till a rough dough comes together, and then whenever you flatten it out, don't do those folds umpteen times, just a couple of times. Also, I like to start with very, very cold ingredients and equipment. So I put all of my ingredients into the refrigerator, as well as my mixing bowl, the glass that I use to measure my buttermilk in. Everything needs to be really cold because you don't want soft, partially melted butter whenever it goes into the oven. Now let's break some more things down. So let's talk about the flour that we use for making biscuits. You can use all-purpose or self-rising. The only difference between the two is your self-rising flour already has your leavening agents in it, which is usually baking powder, and all of that is just salt, some baking soda, and tartaric acid, basically cream of tartar. And you can pretty much use all-purpose flour in anything. Like it's, as its name says, all-purpose. You can't really interchange self-rising for all-purpose though, or else you're gonna mess up your recipe and you won't have a good product. So we don't want to do that. Basically, your self-rising helps you skip a couple steps. You don't have those extra ingredients that you have to put in. But the downside to self-rising is that it's only good for about 6 months, because after that, those leavening agents start to lose their rising power. So use your all-purpose and just add in those leavening agents in the mixture. So how do you make self-rising flour? Because that's basically what you're doing. A general rule of thumb or general measurement is for every 1 cup of all-purpose flour, you can add in 1 teaspoon of baking powder and 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt. And there you have it. You have self-rising flour. And also, there's 2 types of biscuits. The traditional classic biscuit, which you add in your dry ingredients. You cut in your butter or fat, so that could be butter or vegetable shortening, lard. And then you mix in your buttermilk and you form this kind of shaggy dough. You pour it out onto your floured surface, you do your folding, and then you cut out your biscuits with a sharp biscuit cutter, resulting in those nice, round, perfect biscuits. The other type of biscuit is what we call a drop biscuit. Again, you mix all of your dry ingredients together, you add in your butter or lard, and then you add in more milk than a traditional classic recipe, and you form a wetter dough that you scoop out and put onto a baking dish and pop in the oven. Both are very easy to make, so don't let it intimidate you. What we're going to do today is make both so you can see the process and see that it's very simple. So we're going to take a very quick break. I'm going to get everything together, and whenever we come back, we'll start with our classic biscuits. We're back and we're gonna get started with our classic biscuits. So I took my bowl out of the refrigerator. I like to put my flour into a larger container like this because for me it's easier to measure out of, especially using the scoop and swoop method of measuring, which is the most accurate. You just scoop your flour into your measuring cup, make sure it's a dry measuring cup, kind of let it overfill, and then you're going to take a flat edge either of a knife, a spatula, like an icing spatula, and then you're just going to tap it so it's even, and then you swipe it off. So in here I have 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour. Remember, we're going to add our leavening agents in. Next, I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of baking powder. So there's 1. And then I'm going to add a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. And then a teaspoon of salt. All right, there's my teaspoon. And then you can either, if you have a sifter, great. If not, you can just whisk it all together. But I'm just going to sift this so it mixes together. This was one of my jobs, helping my granny make biscuits. I'd get to sift the flour. All right, so that's all mixed in there. Keep your sifter though, you're gonna use that again in a few minutes. So I'm just gonna push this to the side. Got my dry ingredients. So remember I mentioned keeping all of your equipment in the refrigerator to keep it cold. Another trick that I like is to grate my butter instead of trying to squish it between your fingers. So let me grab my grater and the butter. I kept the butter in the freezer because that helps it stay nice and hard and firm, and it takes a little longer for it to start melting. Remember, we don't want soft butter. So just kind of dip it into your flour, roll it around. That helps grating it easier. On a box grater, I use the larger grates, and you just grate your butter. You could do this ahead of time if you wanted to and just kind of spread the butter out onto a piece of parchment paper. And then whenever you're ready, all you have to do is just add it into your bowl. And every now and then you may have to stop and, recoat your stick of butter with flour. That's fine. I kind of like to stop every now and then and kind of distribute the pieces of butter. As you can see, they come off in nice little chunks. And whenever you're squeezing the butter between your fingers, this is kind of what you're wanting. About very, very thin, flat, dime-sized pieces or pea-sized pieces. Now, I will tell you, I did at one time try to get my granny's biscuit recipe, but it just didn't work out. She was too impatient for me to try to measure all the ingredients out because, of course, she'd tell me, well, you just put in there enough till it feels right. I'm like, I have no idea what right feels like. Got to help me out here. All right, so we have our butter grated. All right. Try to just kind of scrape inside there, get all those butter pieces. You want all that butter, all that fat in your biscuits. Scrape off the front. Very good. All right. Set that aside, and I'm just going to gently toss it around to coat all those butter pieces with the flour. Very good. Now is your buttermilk. So I'm going to grab our measuring cup, our glass measuring cup that I have in the refrigerator, and the buttermilk. So this calls for 1.5 cups of buttermilk. I usually like to start with about 1 cup of buttermilk and then add more as I need it. All right, so there's 1. And you pour this in. I kind of like to go around the edges. And because I've made this a couple of times, I feel like I'm going to need a little extra buttermilk. So I'll start with about 1/4 cup first, and then add some more. So you have your flour in, and then you just mix it together until a very shaggy dough forms. I'm going to finish getting this mixed together and get my counter prepped, and whenever we come back, I'll show you how to do that folding method to get those nice flaky layers. See you in a few.
Ready to turn your creativity into a career? At Bladen Community College's Cosmetology Department, we're shaping the future of beauty one student at a time. From hairstyling and makeup to skincare and nails, you'll gain hands-on experience with real clients, expert instructors, and industry tools. Your career-focused degree or certificate in cosmetology is waiting. Learn more at bladencc.edu or give us a call to get started today.
Hey y'all, welcome back. So I've prepped my countertop. You want to make sure you've sprinkled flour on there. That's why I said keep your sifter, because then you can just kind of sprinkle like that, and it makes it a lot easier than trying to spread it out with your hand. So we have our dough here. You can see it's very shaggy, but it does come away from the sides of the bowl, and that's what you want. I did forget earlier though. Don't forget to add your shortening. There was 8 tablespoons of butter, so a stick of butter, and then 2 tablespoons of vegetable shortening. Now I don't do the vegetable shortening on the grater because it's too soft, and you can't, putting it in the freezer is not going to help any. All right, now it may look very like, okay, this is not coming together. That's fine, that's what you want, because part of your folding is mixing in all of those ingredients. Also, make sure your hands are very well floured here. So I'm just going to take a pinch, rub it on my hands, take this off, and then you get dirty. So you just kind of fold it over a couple of times, like so. You may need to add more flour as you go, and that's fine. So here, we're going to kind of pat it out as much as possible. And see, I need more flour already. Just shift that there. You're going to kind of pat it out into about a 10-inch by 10-inch square as much as possible. Oh, more flour. That looks good. So now I'm going to take a rolling pin, which I'm going to make sure I flour very well. I'm going to get some of this dough off my fingers first. And just add that back into it. That's not a problem. All right. So flour my rolling pin. Just kind of rub it around. And then I'm going to roll this out into a rectangle. And again, make sure you're adding flour as you go. Ooh, don't let it come up. We don't want it to stick. I think this is the part that gets a lot of people. And gently roll. Get this glob of dough off here. And it may not be exactly 18 inches. You just want to go about that, okay? But you can see the flecks of butter all through here, and that's what you want. All right. Get my dough off here. Now for me, again, flouring my hands, I'm going to do my best to fold. So I'm going to take it side, I'm going to fold, and then here I'm going to do the other side. If you have a bench scraper, perfect tool to help you with this. You can also use a spatula, that's perfectly fine. And then you're just going to pat this out again. Add more flour to those hands. So I flattened it once. Now I'm going to go from this side. I'm sorry. And we're going to fold. And then we're going to fold. And then we're going to turn. Now we're going to press it out again. Getting the dough off our fingers as we go. Sticking that together, flouring the surface a little bit, flouring my hands. All right, there we go. Now I would fold and pat it out 3 to 4 times. Again, like I said, you don't want to overwork your dough. I'm going to fold it again. And if it starts sticking to the counter, add more flour. Pull and fold and flatten out. I think I'm going to do just one more time. Try to pick this dough up and flour underneath it so it's not sticking. All right, so fold it once more. I'm just going to fold it over like that. Yeah, we definitely need to get some flour under here. Pick it up, put it down, flour on top. All right, I'm going to finish pressing this out and get it rolled out into a nice surface about 1 inch thick. And then we're going to take a break, and I'll show you how to cut these biscuits out.
If you're a small business owner or prospective entrepreneur, the Bladen Community College Small Business Center is here to help you. They offer free seminars to help you start or grow your existing business, and one-on-one counseling and assistance is available if needed. They can also provide you with community and statewide resources. Best of all of these services are free. Let the Bladen Community College Small Business Center help you turn your dreams into reality. Contact the Bladen Community College Small Business Center today.
All right, we're back. Let's cut these biscuits out now. So you can use a biscuit cutter, make sure it's nice and sharp. If you don't have one of those, you can use a round cookie cutter. You could use a mason or a glass, whatever works. Just make sure it's sharp, put some flour on it, and then you go straight down and straight up. Okay, so straight down. And you keep reflouring as you need to. And you just go around and cut your biscuits out. Good. All right. Now I did remember my spatula this time since I don't have my bench scraper. I'm going to take these out, or pick up the biscuits. You're going to put them on a greased baking sheet. You're just going to lay them out. Now I will say the closer you put your biscuits together, the softer the edges are going to be. If you spread them out, you'll have more crispy edges. All right. I like mine close together. I like soft biscuits, because the top will be plenty crunchy, I promise. And also, to help get a nice crunchy top, I've melted butter and I'm going to brush the tops of the biscuits with the butter. So that'll just help make it nice and golden and again crispy. As you can see, I'm going to have a lot of dough left over. What you do is you just put it back together and flatten it out, and you keep making biscuits. Now, if you wanted to freeze these biscuits, you could absolutely do that, and this would be the time to do it. Instead of greasing your pan, line it with some parchment paper, and then you stick your pan in the freezer, let your biscuits get kind of hard, and then you can pull them off and put them into a Ziploc bag, and you just pull them out and bake them as you would if they were fresh. You'll have to bake them a little longer, of course, but you've got biscuits. All right, so like I said, I'm not gonna roll that out. I'm gonna go ahead and brush the tops of these. Also, if you don't have a baking dish, a cast iron skillet works great for this. All right, so I've got my biscuits buttered, and I will put them into the oven, 450 degrees for 15 to 17 minutes. So, set my timer here. All right, I'm going to do 16 minutes and then I'll check on them. If you need to add more time, that's perfectly fine. I would just do maybe a minute to 2 minutes at a time. You don't want burnt biscuits. So I am going to go ahead and put this dough back together. Of course, flour my hands again. And then after I get this, what I think I'm going to do with this leftover dough is just go ahead and cut them out and then freeze these biscuits for later. That way I have them on hand. All right, just like that. I don't even worry about a rolling pin at this point because it's just such a small amount of dough. Like I said, flour it up. I only have 2 biscuits, partial. All right. So there you have it. I'm going to get this cleaned up and get ready for our drop biscuits next. So I'll see you guys here in a few. Hey, we're back and I've got everything cleaned up and now we're gonna work on our drop biscuits. So same thing as before, you incorporate or you mix together your dry ingredients. So we have here 2 cups of flour, we have 2 teaspoons of baking powder, a half teaspoon of baking soda, a teaspoon of sugar, and 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt here. So I'm just going to get that sifted here into my bowl. All right, that's done. Now, with drop biscuits, you don't have to grate in your butter. For this one, we're going to melt our butter, which I've already melted, and let it slightly cool. You don't want it to be hot. All right, and I'm just going to whisk it a little bit. That's perfect. Now, what we do is we add in our buttermilk to this. And it goes. Scrape down all of that buttermilk. Awesome. And then we're just going to kind of whisk this together until we see little like butter clumps start forming, where that fat has started to solidify again due to the cold buttermilk. Okay, yeah, it's starting to clump up. You see it's a little clumpy, and that's what you want. All right, so that's good. Just gonna tap that in there and get all of that butter and buttermilk in there. Now I'm going to add the milk and butter mixture into our dry ingredients here. Awesome. So that's in, and you just mix here until You don't want any dry flour pockets or anything like that. Just kind of go around the edge of your bowl, folding. Again, it's going to be a slightly more wet dough than your previous dough. And you can fold this in. That's a good method to kind of keep from over mixing. So you go around the edge and literally fold it over on itself. All right, awesome. So I have that mix, scrape this here. Now we're gonna take a ice cream scoop. You can use a dry 1/4 cup measuring cup if you have that. I like the scoop just because it kind of helps me get it out a little easier. I'm gonna use a little cooking spray to spray the scoop. And then also spray the pan a little bit. And then you just scoop and drop. Just like that, very easy. Definitely a lot less mess. Just plop this one down right there. Again, it might get a little, might not get as crispy as the others around the edge. All right, just gonna add that little bit of dough to that one. And there you have it. Those are your drop biscuits. A lot easier to make. Just like with the previous batch, we're gonna go in with just a little bit of butter over the tops. Not too much. Okay. Now whenever these come out, these will be, of course, not in that nice round biscuit shape that we're used to. It's just gonna, it's a little, it's rough. It's a little craggy, and that's fine. So these will go into an oven at 475 degrees for about 12 to 14 minutes. And then you'll take them out and just let them cool down a little bit. And any biscuit you can use to sop up gravy. You can put jelly on them. You make ham biscuits. Sky's the limit. This is a vessel to get yummy goodness to your mouth. Or you can just eat them plain. It's perfectly fine. So there you have it. 2 ways to do biscuits. A little more complicated rollout version, and then a very simple drop biscuit recipe. So I hope you guys will try this recipe, try these biscuits out, and don't let them intimidate you anymore. That's all we have for today, and I'll see you next time on At the Table.